Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. The rain fell in a steady drizzle, soaking the cobblestones outside the quiet cottage where Harry Potter had chosen to live out his days. He sat by the window, fingers drumming on the table, the firelight casting shadows across his face. Years had passed since he had last held a wand in battle, and the world had settled into peace, at least. That's what it seemed. The magical world had healed from the scars of Voldemort's reign, and Harry, now a man well into middle age, had retired from active wizarding life. His scar no longer hurt, and he had built a quiet life far from the magical battles of his youth. He had earned it. But something gnawed at him. It was subtle, like a whisper at the back of his mind. He couldn't explain it to Ginny, or even to his children. Albus had gone on to work at the Ministry of Magic, following in the footsteps of his mother, while James and Lily were busy with their own careers. Harry was proud of them all, but there was a part of him that couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong, as something deep and old, beyond what any of them could understand. He hadn't spoken of it to anyone, mostly because he couldn't find the words for it himself. That evening, as he stared out the window into the endless stretch of gray sky, an ancient magical artifact on his mantelpiece hummed to life. It was a small, unassuming stone, covered in runes so worn with time that even Hermione had trouble translating them when Harry had first found it. But tonight, the runes glowed faintly, as if awakening after centuries of sleep. Harry stood, his heart pounding with a sense of dread he hadn't felt since he was 17. The runes pulsed, and then a voice as soft, cold, and ancient spoke through the stone. "Harry Potter, the time has come." The words sent a shiver down his spine. He had no idea who was speaking or why, but the power behind the voice was undeniable. It carried the weight of centuries, and with it, the certainty of danger. He reached out to touch the stone, his fingers brushing the cold surface. A rush of images flooded his mind, dark shadows sweeping across the wizarding world, ancient spells forgotten by time, and a figure cloaked in black magic, standing at the edge of destruction. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, leaving Harry gasping for breath. "Harry!" Ginny's voice cut through the air as she stepped into the room. She took one look at him and immediately knew something was wrong. "What is it?" "A broken bar." "I don't know," he replied, shaking his head. "But I think something's happening. Something terrible." Ginny frowned, moving closer to him. "Is it a broken bar like before?" Harry glanced at the stone, now dark and still on the mantelpiece. "No," he said after a moment. "It's worse." The next morning, Harry sent word to Hermione and Ron. It didn't take long for them to arrive. Hermione was now head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and Ron, while officially retired from the Era office, still had contacts in the ministry. They gathered in Harry's living room, the atmosphere heavy with concern. "This ancient magic you're talking about," Hermione said, her brow furrowed as she examined the stone on Harry's mantelpiece. "If it's real, then it's older than anything we've ever dealt with. Even Voldemort didn't tap into something like this." "It felt a broken bar, ancient," Harry admitted. "Like it's been waiting for something." "Waiting for me, maybe." Ron, ever the pragmatist, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "So what's the plan?" "We've dealt with dark wizards before. We can do it again." Harry shook his head. "This isn't like anything we've faced. It's not just dark magic. It's something else. Something that shouldn't exist anymore." Hermione nodded slowly. "If what you saw is true, this could be a form of magic that predates even Hogwarts. Magic so dangerous that it was sealed away for a reason." "Which means," Harry said, his voice grim, "that someone's trying to bring it back." Ron's face darkened. "Who?" "I don't know," Harry replied, "but we need to find out. And fast." In the weeks that followed, Harry worked closely with Hermione and Ron, combing through old records, magical archives, and ancient texts that even Hermione had never heard of. But the more they searched, the more elusive the answers became. Whatever was coming, It was beyond their understanding. But it wasn't until Harry received a second vision that things became clearer and far more dangerous. This time, the vision came in the dead of night, as Harry lay in bed, tossing and turning. In his dream, he found himself standing in the ruins of an ancient castle, surrounded by shadows. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and in the distance, he saw a figure cloaked in black, chanting words in a language Harry didn't recognize. The shadows twisted and writhed around the figure, as if feeding off the dark magic. Suddenly, the figure turned, and Harry saw its fascia pale, gaunt, and filled with malice. It was a face Harry had never seen before, but somehow he knew this person was connected to the ancient magic that had summoned him. The figure's voice echoed through the ruins, cold and malevolent. "The shadow curse will rise again, Potter. And this time, there will be no one to stop it." Harry woke with a start, drenched in sweat. His heart pounded in his chest, and his mind raced. The shadow curse. It was a name he had never heard before, but it filled him with dread. The next morning, he wasted no time in telling Hermione and Ron about the vision. Hermione's eyes widened as he described the scene, and by the time he finished, she looked pale. "The shadow curse," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I've read about it. It's an ancient form of dark magic, lost to time. It was believed to be so powerful that it could erase entire bloodlines from existence." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Hermione said, her voice barely above a whisper, "if this curse is unleashed, it could wipe out magical families completely. Entire lineages are gone." Ron swore under his breath. "And you think this has something to do with you?" Harry nodded slowly. "I don't know why, but I feel like I'm connected to it somehow, like this curse is tied to my bloodline." Hermione didn't hesitate. "We need to find out who's behind this, and we need to stop them before they can unleash the curse." As Harry, Hermione, and Ron began their search for the source of the shadow curse, they encountered more and more troubling signs. Dark wizards were on the move, operating in secret, gathering followers. The Ministry of Magic was slow to react, dismissing the growing threat as isolated incidents. But Harry knew better. Meanwhile, Harry's son, Albus, had been following the events closely. Despite Harry's reluctance to involve him, Albus had grown into a talented wizard in his own right, with a sharp mind and a strong sense of justice. He was part of a new generation of wizards who were eager to prove themselves, but Harry feared they didn't understand the full extent of the danger they faced. One evening, after another long day of research, Albus approached his father. "Dad," he said, his voice steady, "I want to help." "You can't do this alone." Harry looked at his son, seeing the determination in his eyes. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right," he said quietly. "But you need to understand, this isn't like anything we've faced before. This cursey broken bar, it's ancient, and it's dangerous." "I know," Albus replied. "But I'm not afraid." Harry smiled faintly. "Neither was I, once." Together, they set out to find the leader of the dark wizards who were trying to unleash the shadow curse. Their search led them to an old, abandoned fortress deep in the Scottish Highlands. The fortress had once been a stronghold for dark magic users during the time of the Hogwarts founders, and it was here that they believed the curse had first been sealed away. As they approached the fortress, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The air was thick with a stench of dark magic, and every shadow seemed to shift and move on its own. Albus and the young wizards who had joined them were tense but ready, their wands at the ready. They entered the fortress, and immediately, they were surrounded by darkness. The walls seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, and the temperature dropped sharply. As they ventured deeper into the fortress, they found themselves face to face with the leader of the dark wizards, the same figure Harry had seen in his vision. "You're too late, Potter," the figure sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "The shadow curse will rise again, and this time, your bloodline will be the first to fall." Harry raised his wand, his heart pounding in his chest. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Harry didn't hesitate. He raised his wand, his heart thudding in his chest, but his mind clear, focused. The air crackled with tension as the dark wizard stepped forward, shadows swirling around him like a living entity. The young wizards behind Harry, including Albus, tightened their grips on their wands, their faces pale but determined. "You've failed before, and you'll fail again," the dark wizard hissed, his voice carrying the weight of the ancient curse he was preparing to unleash. Harry didn't reply. Instead, he cast the first spell, Expelliarmus, a move so familiar to him. It was as natural as breathing. The dark wizard deflected it with ease, his smirk growing wider. "You'll need more than that to stop what's coming." The battle erupted in an instant. Spells flew through the air in bursts of bright light, and the walls of the fortress trembled under the sheer force of the magic being unleashed. Harry's mind raced as he fought, every muscle in his body straining to keep up with the speed and ferocity of the attacks. He could hear Albus and the others behind him, holding their own, but it was clear that they were outmatched. The dark wizard moved with fluid precision, his curses more lethal and complex than anything Harry had faced in years. The younger wizards struggled to counter them, their inexperience showing as they were pushed back by the overwhelming power. Harry knew they couldn't win this battle with brute force alone. The shadow curse was older than anything they had ever fought before, and its power went beyond simple magic. He had to think differently, tap into something deeper. In a flash of insight, Harry remembered the ancient texts Hermione had uncovered, the ones that spoke of the curse's origins. The shadow curse wasn't just a weapon, it was a living entity, feeding off fear, doubt, and, most of all, bloodlines. It sought to erase entire families, entire legacies, wiping them from existence as if they had never been. And now it was coming for the Potters. His mind racing, Harry realized that he couldn't defeat the curse with force. He had to find the heart of it, the source of its power, and stop it there. But how? The answer came to him in a rush. The Chamber of Fate. It had to be hidden here, deep beneath the fortress. If the curse had been sealed away once, it could be sealed again. "Albus!" Harry shouted over the chaos. His son turned, dodging a jet of green light as he did. "We need to find the chamber. It's the only way." Albus nodded, his face set in grim determination. "I'll hold them off." "Go." "No," Harry said firmly, "we do this together." Albus hesitated, but then nodded, understanding that this wasn't a fight either of them could win alone. They fought their way deeper into the fortress, the dark wizard's followers closing in on them from all sides. Harry's heart pounded as they descended a set of crumbling stone stairs, each step taking them closer to the Chamber of Fate and, he hoped, to the key to stopping the curse. The air grew colder as they descended, and Harry could feel the dark magic pressing in around them, thick and suffocating. He could sense the curse's presence now, like a living thing, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its moment to strike. When they reached the bottom of the stairs, they found themselves standing in front of a massive stone door, covered in the same ancient runes that had glowed on the artifact in Harry's cottage. The door pulsed with dark energy, and Harry knew without a doubt that this was the chamber. "We have to get in," Albus said, stepping forward and raising his wand. Harry grabbed his arm, stopping him. "Wait. If we force our way in, we could trigger the curse." "Then what do we do?" Harry thought for a moment, his mind racing. The runes were ancient, far older than anything taught at Hogwarts, but he recognized their pattern. It was a language of balance, a system that required both magic and sacrifice to unlock. The door wouldn't yield to power alone, it demanded something more personal. He stepped forward, lowering his wand. "It's tied to the bloodline," he said softly. "The curse is connected to me, to the Potters. If I make the offering a broken bar." "No," Albus said, his voice shaking. "You're not sacrificing yourself." "I have to," Harry replied, his voice steady. "It's the only way." Albus stared at him, his eyes wide with fear and desperation. "There has to be another way." "I wish there was," Harry said quietly. "But this is my fight, Albus. I can stop this." Before Albus could argue further, the door's runes began to glow brighter, as if sensing Harry's decision. The stone groaned, slowly creaking open, revealing a vast chamber beyond, filled with shadows and an eerie, pulsing light at its center. They stepped inside, and Harry immediately felt the weight of the curse pressing down on him. At the center of the room stood an ancient altar, covered in the same runes as the door, and atop it was a dark, swirling mass of energy, the shadow curse. It radiated malevolence, its tendrils reaching out as if searching for something Asamania to consume. And Harry knew it was waiting for him. "Stay back," he said to Albus, his voice low but firm. "This is where I stop it." Albus hesitated, but then stepped back, watching his father with wide, fearful eyes. Harry approached the altar, his heart pounding in his chest. Every instinct told him to run, to get as far away from this dark magic as possible. But he couldn't. Not this time. As he reached the altar, the curse seemed to sense him, its tendrils curling toward him like snakes. He felt its cold touch against his skin, its hunger for his bloodline, for his magic, for his very soul. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I won't let you destroy us," he said softly, his voice filled with quiet resolve. "I won't let you take my family." The curse pulsed, growing stronger, as if mocking him. But Harry didn't falter. He raised his wand, focusing all his energy, all his power, on the runes carved into the altar. He could feel the magic in them, ancient and powerful, waiting to be unlocked. And then, with a deep breath, he spoke the incantation that had been sealed away for centuries. It was a spell of sacrifice, one that would break the bond between the curse and his bloodline, but at a cost. The air around him crackled with energy, the very walls of the chamber trembling under the force of the magic being unleashed. The curse writhed and twisted, its tendrils thrashing wildly as it fought against the spell. But Harry held firm, pouring everything he had into the incantation, his body shaking with the effort. The curse screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed through the chamber, and Harry felt it fighting to consume him, to pull him into its dark embrace. But he didn't let go. He couldn't. This was the only way. And then, with a final surge of power, the curse shattered. The tendrils of dark magic disintegrated, the swirling mass of energy dissolving into nothingness. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight of the curse lifted at last. Harry staggered back, his body weak and trembling, but the curse was gone. He had done it. Albus rushed to his side, his face pale with worry. Broken Bar, are you all right?" Harry nodded, though he felt the toll the spell had taken on him. "It's over," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's over." Albus helped him to his feet, and together, they made their way out of the chamber of fate. The darkness behind them finally dispelled. The fortress was quiet as they emerged into the open air, the dark wizards having fled once their leader had been defeated. Harry leaned heavily on Albus, his strength nearly spent, but a sense of peace settled over him. The shadow curse was gone, and with it, the threat to his familia and the wizarding world was finally over. As they reached the edge of the forest, Harry paused, looking out at the horizon where the sun was just beginning to rise. It was a new day, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of true peace. Albus stood beside him, his face filled with quiet awe. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," Harry corrected, smiling faintly. "You and me, together." Albus smiled back, and for a moment, they stood in silence, watching the sun rise over the hills. Harry knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would always be new challenges, new battles to fight. But for now, he was content. He had faced the darkest magic in existence, and he had won not with power, but with love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond of family. The world would move on, but the legacy of the Potters, and all they had fought for, would endure.